Hey Berserk fans, how you guys doing? It's your brother Jay back with another video about Berserk. I want to ask you guys a question about why Guts has the Behelit. My belief why Guts has the Behelit, just imagine, even if Guts kills Griffith in the physical world, Griffith is still a God's Hand member because remember, God's Hand members do what? They rule the astral plane. That's where they rule at, in a whole different type of world. So even if he kills Griffith's physical body, he still will go to the astral world after he gets killed. And then another reason is remember, Griffith took Guts' son's body. The Moonlight Child is Guts' son. Remember, Griffith took that child's body. So if Guts was to kill Griffith, that means he's killing his own child. So we have to keep that into consideration. And then another thing, the reason why Guts will want the Behelit is to activate it in memory. Flora and Shreke are very strong witches and they know how to use magic. Maybe one day Shreke will get taught how to use the Behelit and they can open up the astral plane and they'll get together with the Skull Knight and help open up the astral plane to where Guts and the Skull Knight will get together and probably help fight the God's Hand members on the other side. That's what I believe why that Behelit is there. It's not there to turn somebody into apostle. I think it's there for a reason, for magic to be used to get to the God's Hand members once they destroy the new kingdom that Griffith is trying to build. Because we got to remember that. And then another thing is what will happen to Guts' child and what will happen to Guts if he kills his own child. Because remember, Griffith has took Guts' child physical body. So we have to keep that in mind. So I think that Behelit could be used too to convert Guts' child back to being a human. We have to remember magic is very strong, and that's why Griffith had Flora to be killed by the Neo God Hand. So let's keep that in mind. There's many factors that takes in place with that Behelit, and I think we don't understand how powerful that Behelit is. The Behelit is very powerful, and I think that we don't understand that. But one thing that we do need to understand is it can be used as a tool, not just for evil. That's what we must understand about the Behelit. So maybe Guts is keeping the Behelit, and that's why Flora allowed Guts to keep the Behelit because she knew in the future, in the distant future, Guts is going to need it in Shreke to help fight. Or if Guts die, maybe they can convert the Behelit and give him a similar suit like the Skull Knight. Or maybe Guts may turn into a new God's Hand member, and Casca may end up dying, and his son may end up dying too. So that may make Guts go total berserk and give up on humanity. Because remember, the humans are now turning evil. Now Griffith is king. Remember, it's similar to like Void when he probably was the sage. He probably looked around the kingdom that Gasrick is ruling, and Void probably realized those people aren't worth saving because they believe in Gasrick. They believe in his evilness. They believe in him building up the kingdom. And that's why I believe that Void probably didn't sacrifice the people. Maybe Gasrick did. Who knows? Who knows? Void could have sacrificed himself to become a God's Hand member. Remember, a sage will always return to be a sage at the end. We have to keep that in mind. We have to keep that in mind. A sage will return to being a sage at the end of their process is done. We have to keep that in mind. Years in the astral plane is not the same as years on the earth. The time that Void spends in the astral plane is probably short compared to the years that we spend in regular time being on earth. So we have to keep that in mind. So that's why I feel that everything will end with Void and Guts at the end of the day. And I believe Guts is more like Void than what we realize. And that's the comparison what I'm trying to get fans to see. When you write stories, you have to think deep and beyond. This is a very deep story based off of true mythology throughout history. And so we have to take that in consideration. Miru is very smart, he's very cunning, and he's very slick. and he's very subliminal with his work, but also Meru reveals things like a puzzle and a jigsaw, and you have to put those things together. And once you get the jig is up, you'll be able to see the pieces of, what Guts has to do. I think Guts will end up destroying that whole kingdom, but what's sad is Guts will end up losing Casca and probably his child and even his humanity in the process. That's what's sad about the story, you know. And the kingdom must get destroyed because remember, the kingdom was built off of demonic things. And that's why I believe that Void will return to the sage again. Is Void truly evil too? That's why I believe that Void ain't. Because he's the only Godhand member, like I said, that does not want to make an appearance like a human. Trust me, if Void wanted to look like his old self, a human again, he would have. And I doubt if Void would have been the egg of the king to come back to the earth because he wouldn't want to rule and be a king. Void despises kings. He was the sage. Gasrick was the king. And I believe that Gasrick is allowing Griffith to build the kingdom back over so Gasser could come in and take his kingdom back from Griffith. We have to remember that. Once a king, you will always want to be a king. Gasrick doesn't despise kings. I believe he wants to be a king again. We have to keep that in mind. This Skull Knight guy is definitely a fishy guy. The Skull Knight remind me of a gang leader. When you first meet him, he seems righteous. But when you really start looking into that gang leader, you see that this gang leader has set you up for failure. He has set you up for failure. In the beginning, it seemed like the gang leader cared for you. He loved you. He nurtured you and looked out for you. But when you look at the end of the road, you realize this guy was just using you. And that's what Guts is being used by Skull Knight. You can see how Zod, when they were battling, looked at Skull Knight crazy and stopped in the middle of the battle like, you gonna allow this boy to go down the same path as you? Even Zod knows the Skull Knight is up to something shady. Because Skull Knight and Zod were friends, and you can tell that Zod used to serve the Skull Knight like how he serves Griffith. So now he knows what Guts' path will be, but he does not truly know what Guts' path will be. I think the person that knows what Guts' path will be is Void, and that's why Guts has the Behelit. I believe Guts' bloodline is tied into Void's bloodline. And remember, Griffith is a king. A king comes from a bloodline. And I believe Gasserick and Griffith share the same blood. That's what I'm telling people. So this video is definitely about the true meaning of Guts' Behelit. I believe the Behelit is going to be used to restore the earth back to what it once was before Griffith became the egg of the king in the eclipse. And Guts may end up becoming a God's hand member because I believe Guts is going to end up losing Casca. He's going to end up losing his son. And that's what's going to really drive him mad when he realizes that Griffith took his son's body. And I think Void is going to tell Guts that to piss him off. That's really going to piss Guts off. When Guts find out that Griffith took his son's body so he could come back into the physical world, oh boy, that berserker is going to come out of him so strong to where he's just going to snap and nobody will be able to control him, not even Shreke, because now it's not dealing with Guts' ego, it's dealing with his heart. And when you're dealing with somebody's heart, we all know as humans, you cannot stop that person when they believe it in their heart and their spirit. So keep in mind what that Behelit will be used for. Please leave your comments, subscribe, and like to my page. And I'll see you Berserk fans later. Have a good day.